you have a story, you want a reading, you want me to help you with your life, you have a health problem that you can't put your finger on, and you're like, why is my shoulder constantly in problem? And you want me to read it and you want me to get into it. I'm not that medical expert, but I can tell you where the emotion is attached to it. I think you'll be surprised at how powerful that is. So I would love to hear from you. Go to lisawilliams.com/podcast-guest and we will get you on the show.
Hi everyone. Before we begin, I want to let you know that this podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only. The advice and insights shared here are based on my personal experiences and expertise, but they are not a substitute for professional, medical, psychological, or business advice. If you are dealing with a specific issue, please consult a qualified expert. And thanks for watching.
Hey, I see you. You're upright, you're functioning, and you're showing up in the world. But you're exhausted. You're crying in your car, you've got weird symptoms that no one can explain, and you keep thinking, what's wrong with me? Today, I want to talk to you about something that we don't talk about nearly as often as enough, and that is grief that gets stored in our body. Not the kind that comes with, the funerals and the casseroles and the desserts, but the kind that shows up as tight shoulders, gut issues, and, those sleepless nights when you wake up at 3 a.m. wondering what is wrong with me and you're not having a hot flash. Okay, this is true stuff. So honestly, if you are sitting here and recognizing, wow, this is me, then this is your episode. This is especially for the women out there who are 40s plus or even 30s. And if you've lived through that heartbreak, that excruciating pain, you've had identity shifts where you're like, I don't even know who I am. And that the Michelle Obama book, Becoming, is just like, oh yeah, maybe I kind of recognize that. Or maybe you've had these caretaking moments or divorce or loss or, I'm going to be honest with you, just life, okay? That stuff. And you've been so busy surviving, but you actually haven't had time to process any of this, all right? Or maybe you've just been told to keep on going and you've been praised, you're strong, keep going. Where actually, being strong doesn't mean you're healed. It's your survival. It isn't the same as peace, and it isn't the same as I've worked on myself. It's not easy. And I know this because I've lived it, okay? I was praised all the time. You keep it together. Oh my God, I can't believe that you're managing to do this. You travel around the world. You do this, you do that. You have children that love you. You have a husband that loves you. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't always like that. Okay. Even when my marriage ended back, 13, 14 years ago, and my best friend died, all right, it happened like boom together. And then my body literally started sort of like saying, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. And then there was that time that, I had that issue with my current husband, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I swallowed these words. I didn't actually want to speak my truth because, I had this fear and all of that, and I swallowed it. And then my thyroid, you have no idea. I look like I had a golf ball in my throat. I swallowed the words that I really wanted to say, and then I said them. I've learnt that sometimes grief doesn't always just leave. Sometimes it moves into our body and it waits for us to pay attention. So listen, this is what I want to talk about here is It's in this episode, we're going to talk about how our grief hides and how it gets stored in our body and how it shows up as these weird symptoms and what you can do to start gently getting out of it. This isn't about fixing you, all right? Listen, I'm not here to fix you. You have to do this. This is about listening to the part of you that has been sort of quietly lying there dormant and saying, hey, am I really feeling like this? And you asking, am I allowed to feel like this? Am I even allowed to fall apart a little bit? And I'm going to tell you right now, you absolutely are. Okay. And you are not alone. All right. Trust me when you are not alone. And, I'll say this to you. Ray and I were talking just before the show, and he said, well, why are we grieving when we know that we're going to see our loved ones and that there's a whole life out there? Well, that's great. And that's all well and good. But there's going to be something that our body needs to grieve. We're grieving the loss of a loved one. We're grieving change. We're grieving how our life looked. We're grieving all of this. See, my nose is now going because it's like spirit coming through. But we grieve the identity. We're grieving who we were. We're grieving the loss that we had and the life that we had. And I want to be clear here. Grief isn't about death, okay? It's about any loss. It's that shift, that unraveling what you thought your life would be like. I remember my friend saying to me, this is about what you thought your life would be like. You're grieving the loss of what could be or should be or needs to be. The end of the relationship. Let's talk about ends of a relationship. You may have wanted that relationship to end. You may be like, yes, finally, freedom. And now what? There's grief. You may be not even expecting that relationship to happen, but you kind of knew deep down it wasn't right. There's grief with this. The kids leaving home. Okay? The kids, it's like sometimes you might be pushing the kids out and you might be going, oh my God, just get a life. I can have a clean house. And then when they go, it's like, wow. Or you may be just like, oh, no, my kids can't leave. All of these things, even being forced to leave a job that you hate, losing your sense of identity. And that's what it is. It's your identity. We get so wrapped up in this identity of who we are and what it is what makes us function and what makes us tick. Because what you're actually doing here is you're waking up and not realizing and recognizing your life anymore. All of that is grief. All of it. And whether you want to package it as grief, whether you want to package it as change, whether you want to package it as transformation, whether you want to package it as whatever. It is all of it and more. Okay. I've just put a simple term on it as grief, and it, and just because it didn't come with, a funeral, it doesn't mean it didn't leave a scar. Because sometimes when it does happen, it hits you, and it hits you like you have no idea. And if you can relate to this, share some love, put a comment. I would love to hear your story, because even though you know it's going to come, and even though the storm is coming, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get rained upon, because it really can floor you. And it's part of our nervous system really trying to come to terms with it. So, let's look at, and you've heard me talk about this. You've heard me talk about this time and time again. What happens when we suppress emotions? So when you suppress these emotions, because you've had to function, or you were told to, or, your nervous system carries on. What's happened is your nervous system has had to adapt. You've had to adapt to a life that you are living. You've had to learn to breathe. One of the greatest things that I can ever teach you is how to be aware of your nervous system doing its thing, which we'll talk about in a second. But when your nervous system's had to adapt, It means that maybe your muscles have become tight. You've had trouble sleeping, chronic fatigue, IBS, gut problems, hormonal imbalances. All right. It's not just your age, my friends. It's sometimes a hormonal imbalance, and it could be grief. You've had thyroid flare-ups. You've had autoimmune symptoms. This is your body saying, hello, remember, you didn't get to process this. You carried on and you just shoved it under the carpet. And your body is not punishing you. This is a protection. This is an absolute protection of you. So let me talk about this, okay? When we are suppressing our emotions and we're letting our nervous system kind of do its thing, one of the things that I encourage you to watch for is that moment where you're intense, you're watching something, you're aware of something, and maybe you've done it right now while I've been talking, and you've been aware, and then suddenly you start coughing, or you start yawning, or you start fidgeting, or you start doing something. I remember doing this with somebody in a reading. And I was doing this reading, and suddenly she got up and started to do squats. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she says, oh, I just do this. And it was her nervous system trying to process the information that I was giving, because it was so on target that she basically worked out throughout it. And I heard that she also did that with somebody else's reading too. And because she was in fitness, and that was her way of calming her nervous system. So your way of calming your nervous system might be, a cough or a yawn or that big, that sigh. What's happening is your parasympathetic nervous system is kicking into gear to allow you to calm down. Your muscles get tight because you've been holding on for so long. You've been in this, you held your breath for so long, you've held your muscles tight, and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, or you're sleeping. What happens whenever we're worried is our sleep goes off. I've been really, really working hard in getting my sleep debt down, meaning that over 2 weeks, I'm trying to keep a certain time, certain amount of sleep per night. And it's game changing. But when you're worried and you're concerned, sleep problems happen. And how many times do we can't eat, or we overeat? All of these things are so important. When we look at the chakras and we look at our energy systems and we look at all of these things, these are the parts that start to have issues. So your body is saying, listen, stop. So let's really be real here. You're a woman, or you might be a man who's listening to this who might recognize it with other women, okay, in their life. And I was watching a reel the other day, today, where this guy had a list, a letter from his wife and saying, these are the things that irritate me. And it was because she was in perimenopause. And that could just also be the fact that maybe she was also in an element of grieving. Maybe there were certain things. Or maybe perimenopause is also part of grief, because we're grieving the fact that we can't have any more children. And I'm going to share this with you. As someone who had a hysterectomy at 32, that's real. There's something within us when we have a hysterectomy that, for me, and I talk specifically for me, that I had this massive grief where I'm like, wow, I can't have children anymore. How am I going to have the girl that I thought I was going to have? Now, that ended up happening, but through adoption. However, we're innate women. We're women who are here to co-create, to bring life into the earth. And whether or not you've had a child or not, those mothering instincts still are there. And when we go into menopause, there's a lot of things that happen. Is one, we realize we're aging. And if we think about it, our mothers, when they hit menopause, or our grandmothers, that was coming to the end of their age because people weren't living as long as they are now. Or they're starting to see the shifts that are happening in their aging process. And we start to worry about our aging process, bone density, mood swings, brain fog, you name it, it's there as a woman. And so, we're going into a transitional period in our life. We're hitting this transitional space. It's not easy. It's really not easy. And when we look at what menopause is, it's our body saying, okay, you're no longer at this, you no longer can bear a child. And that can be hard for some people. It's a shift. There's a grief in it in some way. And I think it's something that we don't really talk about. And I personally know it because I had a hysterectomy at 32. And I really struggled with even being a woman, because I'm like, wow, what separates me from being a man is I cannot reproduce. And I know it sounds random, but that's what went through my head. I really struggled with that for quite some time, for several years. But listen, all of this stuff, whatever it is, wherever you're here, whatever you're grieving, whatever that may be, let's talk about this. You've probably been holding on to stuff that may not even just be yesterday. The grief may have happened 3 years ago. And you've probably been really praised by your friends and said, hey, how did you do it? How did you hold it together? Because I'm telling you, people come to me and ask me that all the time. How did you hold that together? Well, I'll be honest with you, you don't, okay? You cry, but you do power through. But that needs a release valve. You need to this strength needs to come out somewhere, and if it doesn't, it goes inward. And that's when your body holds it in for you, okay? So if you don't release it, if you are not crying, if you're not releasing it, if you're not working out, or if you're not walking it out or punching a bag or doing something, what you're doing is you're allowing that to go inward. My son is an MMA instructor, and he channeled his anger, his aggression into MMA. And it's been a real deep learning curve for him, where he's allowed it not to fester in his body. And when we allow it to fester in our body, what it comes out with is, God, I'm just tired all the time. I don't feel like myself anymore. Maybe you recognize some of these. I get sick every time I try to rest. Have you ever tried to go away on vacation and suddenly you're sick? And I feel like I'm carrying everybody else's emotions but my own. Have you ever felt any of those? And if you can check any of those off, then your body might still be going through grief. Of whatever. It could be a breakup. It could be anything. And I'm going to tell you, it is not your fault. Let me say that again. All right, let me just say this one more time. It is not your fault. You are not broken, my friend. You're simply carrying the things that were never given space to actually move through. You didn't allow yourself time. I always say there's space for grace. It's in that time of space you're being given that opportunity to be graceful, to be thoughtful, to be compassionate with yourself. And you are simply carrying things that you couldn't and you didn't give yourself space for grace to do. You didn't miss any healing opportunity or window. You didn't have to go off to a drumming retreat or a breathwork retreat or a psychedelic retreat or, I don't know, go and walk naked in the moonlight, okay? You didn't fail yourself. You're actually right now, if you're having these realizations right now, you are at the perfect timing. Divine timing changes everything. And so I want you to recognize when you're in this moment and you're like, but how am I going to work through it? And I'll tell you what brought me to this is not only my own stuff, okay, because I think it's important to have my own stuff and speak about it from my own truth. But I have seen thousands of people. And if you think about how many readings I've done, I actually don't actually want to think about how many readings I've done in my 30 plus years of doing readings. There was a good few years, and I'll let you do the math. There were a good few years that I was doing 25 readings a week. And so I'll let you do the math on that. And honestly, the amount of clients that I saw that were going through all of these things, that they couldn't sleep, they had stomach problems, they had chronic illness, they had this, that, and the other, and they had a major life change, or they had a major grief, or they had a major job change, or they had their children leaving, whatever it was. And I started to see these correlations. And the more I started to go into my coaching, the more I started to go, oh, there's a connection here. Oh, there's a connection there. And I started to see it, and it really can change us in so many ways that's what brought me to this point. And so I want you to realize that this is your opportunity to find hope, to find that healing, and to find that transformation, because this is the reason why I do these podcasts, is to help you find hope, to help you find the healing, and to transform your life. This is not where your story ends. This is where you start to become you. This is where you kind of soften, you become graceful, you kind of step into this healing. And you don't have to blow your life off or blow yourself up or, start over again or start crying at the most inappropriate time. Okay. Because trust me, there are times that I have sat on planes and I have wept because I'm listening to someone's story that's triggered me, or I have heard a song that just impacts me. We don't have to go there. What it means is that we're going to start small. We're going to start in small, little, bite-sized chunks. These bite-sized chunks are sacred. It's sacred moments. These sacred moments that are going to help you find your way through it. These sacred moments are powerful. It's recognizing when you need to take a breath. Now, this just doesn't mean that you're taking a breath like, no, we're going to take a breath with intention. You're going to place your hand on your heart, and maybe you'll look in the mirror. Maybe you'll look at yourself deep in the eyes. And maybe you'll just say, I see you. I really see you. And when you're able to look deep into your own eyes, there's such power. I encourage you to look into your eyes and sit quietly and look at the deep color inflections of your irises and your eyes, and not like, oh, wow, look at my eyes when you're putting on your makeup or whatever it is. Really encourage you to sit and look and say, I see you. And I also encourage you to move your body, whether it's walking with intention, stretching, dancing. Your body holds this energy, and that's your way of saying, okay, body, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you right now. I hear you, I feel you, and I see you. What is it that I need to do to help you? And you know what? We might want to cry, and that's okay. And you might want to write, and that's okay. And you might want to scream, and that's okay. When you are having that moment of just breath, that sigh, your nervous system's calming you down. When you might start humming, you can feel the vibration through your throat, through your mouth, through your nose, and you're humming a tune. You're allowing your vagus nerve to actually settle and relax your whole nervous system. Maybe you might feel the need to just write or scrawl or scribble or whatever it is, get the pen on the paper, even draw. You're releasing. Maybe you just want to shake out your body and say, you know what, I just need to shake, or go for a walk, or have the sun hit me. It's your body releasing the energy. And when you rest and curl up in a ball, and maybe you're crying, or maybe you get your favorite blanket. Something about blankets. Oh my gosh. You know, if you can just snuggle up in your favorite blanket, you know, that's like you're wrapping your body up and you're saying, I'm looking after you. These are not small acts. They're sacred acts of repair. These are sacred acts of repairing your body from having major shifts in your life. And why does this happen when we hit, a midlife, the 40s, the 50s? Well, if you think about what's brought you to this point right now and everything that you know, you've had a lot. And if you're listening to me and you're the age of 25 and 30 and you still feel like this, that tells me you've had a lot. So start listening. Start taking these moments and coming into this space of rest and relaxation. Every night, and I get excited for this, which is so unlike me because I used to work all the time. My favorite thing is to get my blanket. I have a minky blanket, which I love, or an Ugg blanket. And if I'm with my husband, I'll have my Ugg blanket on. If I'm on my own, I have my minky. And I wrap myself up and I rest and I have my hot chocolate and I'm either watching something mind-numbing on TV or something inspiring on TV, or I'm reading a book. And it's important for me to do that. And it's my sacred acts of repair, mine. And all I can tell you is my own journey. As a psychic medium, people expect me to be okay. They expect my grief to not be there, and I'll tell you why. Is they actually say to me, well, you can speak to her all the time. No. There's moments that, I'll share a brief story. Last year, I spent a month in Australia working with a client, but that client became a friend. And she is the reason why I am sitting here now talking to you about this stuff, about the body, about what the emotion does. Because she said to me, Lisa, my cancer was all emotional. And we worked so hard to help her uncover it. And when I found out that she'd passed away, which was very, very sudden, she didn't have your normal journey with cancer. She didn't even die of cancer. She passed very, very suddenly. That grief hit me. And I didn't realize how much I was grieving. It was as though I could actually communicate with her, of course. And the stories and the intimate things that we had shared. But deep down, I was trying to hold it together for the family. I was trying to hold it together for I was going away on vacation. I was trying to hold it together for my husband, who had something else going on. I was trying to hold it together for my business, where deep down I was losing it. And honestly, it was hard. And as a psychic medium, people's words were like, well, you've helped her so much. You've given her this. That was a comfort, yes, but it didn't erase any pain. Being spiritual doesn't erase the pain. What it actually does is it gives us language for it. It gives us this way of how to articulate it. It doesn't take anything away. It gives us a sense of maybe understanding it, but it doesn't help the body. And my body was just falling apart. I went off to Thailand to do a full cleanse. I did a full cleanse. And my body was freeing up. And the times I grieved when I was doing the work and I was in Thailand and I was definitely releasing, but I had to be built from the inside out. This was a deep space. And when I was going through this, I realized I was holding a lot of emotion in my gut. And just to share with you, I went on a full-on cleanse. So I went through a large intestine, a colon cleanse, which consisted of, and maybe this might be a little bit TMI, kalimas every single day, twice a day. And if you don't know what they are, I'm just going to say Google it. And as I am in my kalima room and I'm lying there and I've got sacred music on, I set an intention every time I walked into this room. And I set an intention where people have probably felt, it was almost like I was going on a journey. And it was a very sacred act for me. I walked into this room that had a shower and a bath, a toilet and whatever, tiny little place. And as I walked in, knowing that my whole thing had been set up for me, I set myself up and I started the process. There were times as I'm listening to a certain playlist, I was just crying and I was letting it out. And I realized I was healing from the inside out. And I realized that I was coming out fresher and easier. And it was just simple. And I lived that simple life. And this is not the first time I've done this. I've done this several times. And last time I did it previously, I was going through a horrendous breakup. And I was did a liver cleanse, and I was at my lowest of lows. And I reached out to the person that I knew I shouldn't have done, which was the person I was going through a breakup with. And it became a mess because I wasn't ready to release and to let go. And then this time I realized I was just letting everything go. And I remember being on the beach in Thailand, which is where my client always wanted to go back to. And I picked up some sand and I wrote something in the sand for her. And it was so powerful. And I cried. And again, it was the release. Our body needed it. And so your body needs it. I want you to recognize that you're not alone. If your body is going through it, yes, it could be menopause symptoms, but it could also be the fact that you're coming to terms with certain things. What I'm sharing with you, my friends, is just a sneak peek of something. I've spent the last several months pouring my heart out into a book. And it's not necessarily the traditional book that you would think. It's a workbook. It's a space for healing. It's a space for you to recognize your grief that has lived in your body for way too long. And I'll tell you, it's not just a book. It's like a daily companion. It's the opportunity for you to take this and work with it. with breath work, with journaling, with tappings, with rituals, with deep remembering of who you are. I'm also doing a workshop on it, and we'll put details in the show notes as well. And it's really for you if you're recognizing and saying, wow, I recognize this. I recognize this, and this is me. And honestly, if you resonate with it, you're the person I wrote it for. You're the people, or you're the person that I have seen day in, day out, who have said, how do I get past this? You're just like me. You're just like the next person. You're not alone. And so I'm going to encourage you to realize that take action. Start crying. Start journaling. Start doing breath work. Start listening to your intuition. Even though your intuition may have actually just sort of gone silent. Because when your intuition goes silent, it's because your nervous system can't cope. You've been in high alert. And so I'm going to say, go to lisawilliams.com. You'll find all the information there. Join the website, join the email list, okay? And you'll get these little sneak peeks, and I'll give you early access and all of these little supports. And there's also a quiz with it, okay? So you can actually see if this resonates for you. There's a retreat that we're creating, and it's not a retreat that you have to come to. It's an online retreat, because we also realize that it's a lot to lift up your busy life and go somewhere. Sometimes you might want to have your cozy blanket at home. And so we're creating an opportunity for you not to be alone. You don't have to do this alone. You never did. But now you really don't have to. We're creating this for you. So in closing here, I just want to say, if you've been carrying this grief in silence, this is your moment to completely exhale. You're not broken. You're just healing in real time right now. So come and be with us. Come and join me. Your body remembers. And now you just have to as well. So I want to say thank you for listening. Take a moment to breathe. Take a moment to have some sacred space and do little things for you to start becoming who you're meant to be. My name's Lisa Williams, and thank you for letting me be part of your world today, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, the information shared on this podcast is meant to inspire and support you, but it's not a replacement for personalized advice from a qualified professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to tune in next time. Until then, take care and keep believing in something better.